I'm surprised NCIS isn't in a rush to replace director Vance, but the EP's reasons make sense. For years, NCIS has thrived on a delicate balance between action, loyalty, and emotional continuity. The series has survived cast departures, shocking deaths, and creative reinventions while still maintaining its identity as one of television's most durable procedural dramas. Yet one question has quietly lingered in the background of recent seasons. What happens when director Leon Vance eventually steps away? Surprisingly, the show does not appear to be in any hurry to answer that question. In many long-running dramas, especially network procedurals, leadership transitions are treated like ticking clocks. Writers often plant seeds years in advance, slowly grooming replacements or introducing ambitious newcomers clearly designed to inherit authority. But Rocky Carroll's director Vance remains firmly planted at the center of the agency, and according to comments from the executive producers, that stability is intentional. More importantly, their reasoning actually makes perfect sense. Vance occupies a unique role within the world of NCIS. He is not simply another boss sitting behind a desk issuing orders. Over time, he evolved into something much more difficult to replace, the institutional backbone of the series. When he first appeared after the departure of director Jenny Shepard, many viewers assumed he would merely serve as a temporary authority figure until another dynamic personality took over. Instead, Carroll transformed Vance into one of the show's most dependable presences. Part of that success comes from restraint. Unlike Leroy Jethro Gibbs, Vance was never written as the emotional centerpiece of the show. He rarely dominates episodes with explosive speeches or dramatic heroics. Instead, he operates with quiet control, allowing the agents beneath him to shine while subtly steering the larger direction of the agency. That balance is incredibly difficult to replicate. A weaker actor could have turned Vance into a generic bureaucrat. Carroll made him feel authoritative without becoming cold, compassionate without losing credibility, and intelligent without overshadowing the team. That subtlety may be exactly why the producers are reluctant to replace him. Television history is full of examples where networks attempted major leadership changes too aggressively. Often those transitions feel artificial because the replacement character arrives carrying obvious future lead energy. Audiences immediately sense the manipulation. Instead of naturally investing in the character, viewers begin comparing them to the person they are replacing. NCIS has avoided that trap remarkably well. The producers appear to understand that Vance's effectiveness comes from long-term audience trust. Fans have spent years watching him navigate internal scandals, political pressure, national threats, and deeply personal losses. He has earned his authority gradually. Replacing him too quickly would risk disrupting one of the show's strongest remaining foundations. There is also a practical storytelling reason for keeping Vance in place. NCIS currently benefits from stability more than reinvention. Long-running procedurals eventually reach a point where constant upheaval becomes exhausting. Early seasons thrive on unpredictability because audiences are still learning the world and its characters. But veteran viewers often continue watching for familiarity, chemistry, and emotional comfort. NCIS understands this better than most franchises. The series no longer depends entirely on shocking twists to maintain interest. Instead, it succeeds because viewers enjoy spending time with the team dynamic. Vance contributes enormously to that atmosphere. He functions almost like the show's anchor point. Characters may come and go, younger agents may evolve, and cases may become increasingly complicated, but Vance remains the calm center holding everything together. Removing him without an absolutely necessary narrative reason could unintentionally destabilize the tone that modern NCIS relies upon. Another factor working in Carroll's favor is his versatility. One of the smartest things NCIS has done over the years is avoid overexposing Vance. The writers know exactly when to bring him forward emotionally and when to keep him operating in the background. Episodes exploring his family life, military history, or moral conflicts land effectively because they are used sparingly. If the show constantly centered on Vance, audience fatigue might eventually set in. Instead, every meaningful Vance-focused storyline feels important. That strategy extends the character's lifespan dramatically. Executive producers also likely recognize the danger of replacing legacy figures simply for the sake of creating headlines. Television today often falls into the trap of confusing change with progress. A dramatic leadership transition may generate short-term buzz, but sustaining viewer investment afterward is much harder. NCIS has already endured enormous cast turnover over the years, including the departure of Mark Harmon's Gibbs, arguably the defining figure of the franchise. That transition succeeded partly because the show did not simultaneously dismantle every other major pillar around him. Keeping Vance offers continuity during an era where continuity matters more than ever. There is also something refreshingly realistic about the decision. In real federal agencies, experienced directors do not vanish overnight simply because audiences expect change. Competent leadership often remains in place for long periods precisely because stability is valuable. NCIS benefits from allowing its fictional institution to feel grounded rather than artificially reshaped for dramatic convenience. The producer's reasoning also reflects confidence rather than fear. Some shows replace veteran characters because writers no longer know how to use them. That does not appear to be the case here. Vance still serves meaningful narrative functions, whether he is protecting his agents from political pressure, negotiating with outside agencies, or quietly mentoring the next generation. As long as the writers continue finding organic purposes for him, there is little reason to force an exit. And perhaps most importantly, Rocky Carroll still brings credibility to every scene he enters. There is a certain gravitas he carries that cannot easily be manufactured. Even brief appearances instantly reinforce the hierarchy and seriousness of the NCIS world. Few actors can deliver exposition-heavy dialogue while still maintaining emotional authenticity, but Carroll consistently manages it. Losing that presence would create a larger void than some viewers may initially realize. Eventually, NCIS will have to confront the future. No television institution lasts forever, and no character remains permanently untouchable. One day, the franchise may absolutely introduce a new director capable of redefining the agency for another era. But the producers seem wise enough to understand that timing matters. Right now, replacing director Vance would feel less like evolution and more like unnecessary disruption. In a television landscape obsessed with constant reinvention, there is something admirable about NCIS recognizing the value of patience. Sometimes the smartest creative decision is not rushing toward the next big change. Sometimes it is understanding that a character still has plenty left to offer. And as long as Rocky Carroll continues delivering the quiet authority that has defined Leon Vance for so many years, NCIS has little reason to hurry. What makes the situation even more interesting is how director Vance has quietly become one of the last remaining bridges between multiple eras of NCIS. Few characters still carry meaningful connections to the show's older identity while also fitting naturally into its newer direction. That alone gives him enormous narrative value. When viewers think about NCIS history, they often immediately picture Gibbs interrogating suspects in the basement, Tony DiNozzo making movie references, or Abby Sciuto racing through the lab fueled by caffeine and energy. Those personalities defined the show's golden years, but almost all of them are gone now. In lesser procedurals, that level of turnover can create a strange disconnect where the series barely resembles the version audiences originally loved. Vance prevented that from happening. He became the thread stitching together every generation of the franchise. He worked alongside Gibbs during the show's most dominant years, but he also adapted naturally to the post-Gibbs era without feeling outdated. That flexibility is rare. Many authority figures in procedural dramas become trapped within a specific era, making them difficult to transition into new creative directions. Vance never had that problem because his personality was built around professionalism, adaptability, and emotional intelligence rather than gimmicks. That adaptability may be the single biggest reason the executive producers are comfortable keeping him exactly where he is. There is no obvious urgency to modernize the role because Vance already feels modern. He is composed without being robotic. He commands authority without becoming tyrannical. He understands political realities but still protects his team when necessary. In many ways, he represents the evolution of leadership within NCIS itself. That is why replacing him would require far more than simply introducing another experienced official with an impressive resume. The audience would need to believe this new figure could command the same respect from agents and viewers alike. And honestly, that is a difficult challenge. Vance works because he feels earned. Every major conflict, every difficult decision, and every quiet moment of vulnerability added another layer to the character over time. One underrated aspect of Vance's popularity is how human the writers allowed him to become. Early on, he seemed intentionally mysterious and emotionally guarded. But gradually, the series revealed his fears, regrets, and personal sacrifices. Viewers saw him struggle with fatherhood, grief, and the impossible pressures of leadership. Those moments transformed him from a distant administrator into a fully realized character. Importantly, the show never overcorrected. Some dramas weaken authority figures by making them overly emotional or constantly involved in frontline action. NCIS resisted that temptation. Vance still feels like a director first and foremost. His emotional scenes work because they are restrained rather than melodramatic. That careful balance preserved the integrity of the character. The producers likely understand that finding another actor capable of maintaining that balance would be incredibly difficult. There is also the question of chemistry. One reason Vance continues thriving is because he interacts differently with every member of the team. His dynamic with Gibbs carried tension and mutual respect. With agents like McGee, Torres, and Parker, he often functions more like a measured mentor. Those relationships give the show texture. Replacing Vance would not just affect one role, it would alter the chemistry of the entire ensemble. That kind of ripple effect can seriously damage long-running shows if handled poorly. Television audiences form emotional attachments not only to individual characters, but also to the rhythm of interaction between them. NCIS has spent years carefully refining that rhythm. Vance's calm authority helps stabilize more energetic personalities around him. Without that counterbalance, the tone of the series could shift in unpredictable ways. And there is another reality the producers probably recognize. Audiences are exhausted by constant shock value storytelling. Modern television often treats every season like it needs a massive game-changing twist to remain relevant. Characters die unexpectedly, leadership changes overnight, and franchises reinvent themselves repeatedly in pursuit of social media attention. But NCIS survives because it rarely abandons its core identity. Keeping Vance reflects confidence in that formula. The show no longer needs to prove it can create dramatic surprises. Instead, it focuses on maintaining emotional investment and consistency. That may sound less flashy, but it is one of the main reasons the franchise has outlasted countless competitors. Ironically, not rushing to replace Vance may actually make his eventual departure more meaningful whenever it finally happens. If the writers forced an exit prematurely, it would likely feel manufactured. But allowing the character to remain central until the right story naturally emerges gives future writers far more emotional leverage. Viewers will feel the weight of that transition because Vance has become such a permanent fixture within the agency, and when that day finally arrives, NCIS will need more than a replacement. It will need a genuine successor, someone capable of carrying the emotional trust audiences built with the character over nearly 2 decades. That is not something casting directors can solve overnight. Until then, the smartest move may simply be appreciating what the show already has. Rocky Carroll continues delivering one of the most quietly effective performances in network television, and the producers seem fully aware of it. In an industry that often discards veteran characters too quickly, NCIS choosing patience over unnecessary reinvention feels surprisingly refreshing. Director Vance may not dominate headlines the way Gibbs once did, but his importance to the franchise cannot be overstated. He represents stability, continuity, and credibility, 3 qualities that become increasingly valuable the longer a television series survives. So while some fans may wonder why NCIS is not actively preparing the next director of the agency, the answer is becoming clearer. The current one is still doing the job exceptionally well.